Bigger. This is almost the last thing. Bigger. Thank you. Yes. Now we're talking.
Hey. Okay. The future of banking will be dominated by platforms. I'm Pål Krogdahl, I'm Director of Advisory Services at Samlink, but more importantly, I'm the co-host of FinTech Daydreaming, the #1 podcast for FinTech and banking technology in the Nordics. But I'm not going to take this discussion, thank you, please clap. But I'm not going to take this discussion on my own. I've got two fantastic friends with me that we're going to talk about this. It's Sampsa and Liisa. So please join me.
Hello.
You need to turn it on.
Hello.
Are they on? Yes?
Are these on?
Yes? Excellent. Fantastic. I thought I'd change this up a little bit because it turns out that these two fine people have worked together in the past. So we'd change it a little bit. And I thought, Liisa, why don't you introduce Sampsa?
Yes, I think that this is a unique opportunity. It's now scary as well. So yes, I can introduce now who Sampsa is. Sampsa is one of those banking executives who actually has been quite visionary for quite many years and who has seen what is coming and also had the courage in big organizations to take on things and go to the change agenda and empower his people. So I know because I've been reporting to him.
And Liisa, on the other hand, she is the secret weapon of Nordea. She is a person of rare species of really understanding what is to come, how it is to come, but more importantly, how to execute, how to drive that execution of those things. We don't have too many bankers of that kind of a combination, but above all, she's also a tremendous individual to work with.
Fantastic. And I can stand for both of them being fantastic people. But let's talk about embedded finance and the journey that the platformification of the banking industry is going on. I think no one's going to argue with us. The future of banking is in one way or another going to be dominated by platforms that we see. The growth is coming at different paces in different parts of the world. I think we've seen a fantastic acceleration in Asia Pacific. We've seen an acceleration in Latin America. In the Nordics, I would say that we are taking a slower journey, but the journey is definitely happening. And it's been driven quite a lot around embedded finance and open banking and the journey from there. I think if we look at the growth of super apps, I don't think we're going to see much super apps in the Nordics, but e-passi has taken a fairly interesting position in Finland and potentially will take a larger position when it comes to super apps and therefore the growth of embedded finance and platforms. And at the end of the day, the consumers are voting with their feet. Consumers want banking to come to them. They don't want to do banking consciously. They want it to become invisible as they move forward. So one of the questions I've really got to start with sitting here with a large Nordic bank behind you, do you think that the banks truly are ready to compete in this new paradigm against potentially the growth of e-passi, the growth of other platforms as they start coming into the Nordics?
Yeah, I think that platformization is here to stay. I think that that's what we all agree. And I think that all banks should actually look into the platformization. They should kind of look into whether they want to become platforms, which is kind of the platform definition being that there also it needs to be open for non-customers. And like if we look into the European regulation, that is pretty hard because banks need to KYC their customers. So by definition, I think banks have a very hard time becoming platforms by that definition in Europe. But I think that then every bank should actually look into that what do they do then in the platformization game, because everybody wants to claim that they're a platform. And I think they have three choices. They can become a platform, which is a bit difficult. Then they can also embed their services to the customer journeys, which is embedded banking. Or then they have a chance to become a BaaS provider, which I think we have another example here. So I think there is different choices, and I think every bank should make up their mind how do they want to play the game.
So I think an important point on that is this is coming. Every bank needs to set a strategy for how they're going to engage into this future model. With that in mind, you're coming from a slightly different perspective.
Yeah, I would say, first of all, I pretty much agree with what Liisa was stating, that it is something where you need to know where you're good at. You need to focus on that where you're good at. And then you know what your customers really want to have and how to implement that actually into the workflow of the customer or daily kind of a presence of that customer in whether it's a platform or whatever service we're actually talking about. But you need to understand that what your capabilities actually are and build on those. And then be present there where you are and not try to be everything for everyone, because then you're nothing for no one.
That leads me to a sort of follow-on question. A lot of large banks are positioning themselves as universal banks. They do everything for everyone and they want to be good at everything for everyone. Are you saying that we're moving towards a paradigm where banks need to start selecting certain verticals and saying, this is what I will focus on and this is where I'm going to drive my value? Are we saying that the universal bank is starting to die?
That's my personal view. I'm not saying it's an absolute fact, but that's what I believe in. And also, if you think about winning global banks, whether they are Nubank-like operators, whether they are JB Morgans or kind of a Santanders, they all have focused on certain things where they're very strong at. And they don't think they are strong at one country, they are strong at something which is scalable across the kind of jurisdictions. And I believe winning banks will take that route. They know where they're strong at. They will bring that strength into whatever jurisdiction where there's business out of it. And that's how I see it.
What about you, Liisa?
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of fragmentation in the European payments and the European banking market. And I think that there is a lot of course, like fintech players who are quite good in certain niche areas. But then I think that it depends on the clientele. I think it is the big corporate clients who actually want to have it from one place, all of the services. Often, of course, they have multiple banks as well, but then also I think, also some of a lot of the smaller customers also they want to have the commercial bank to offer them the services.
That's what you are paid for saying, so I know that.
But actually brings to a follow-on question around business models. The banking business models have been the same for many years, right? The banks have survived on taking deposits at the end of the day and interest on those deposits. With the growth of embedded finance and with the growth of the platformification of the banking industry, we are seeing a potential shift here. Do we think that this is going to bring new transformational business models that banks need to adopt to and get used to? And therefore, the next follow-on question to that, is the leadership in the bank ready for this transformation?
I think that yes, the business models are changing, and I think first of all, platformization and ecosystems are kind of like part of the same concept. I think ecosystems have been there for decades, but these ecosystems are now transforming towards real time. I think a lot of the regulation changes that are ongoing, for instance, the instant payments, that is catalyzing, that is enhancing the transformation in the ecosystems. These are becoming more, and also payments and banking is becoming more event-driven. It's more real-time, which is changing the way that ecosystems are working. And I think that that's transforming the way things are done. But I think banking is going to be needed. And the way that banking is distributed, that is changing. And to me, that is another channel of banking. We have had online channels, we have had file channels, but now we are going to have another channel which is then embedding the banking services in a wide scale to customers' processes. And that's how I see it. I see that it's the same kind of services, same needs that are going to be fulfilled, but with other needs, other ways.
Yeah, it will be like with many other services, that the basic need actually is most likely to stay, and don't really see that changing. It has been there for thousands of years, so most likely won't change either. But then the technical abilities to execute the service and offer it and have it in front of you is definitely changing. But also we need to take into our mindset that the security aspect is becoming more and more central. So it's not anymore about what can be done. It is actually increasingly how to do it securely, and also kind of so that customers feel that the service is still secure. Security is and has been the driver of banking selection as long as it has been there. And somehow we often forgot that what is doable instead of how actually it should be done, also from a security and trust point of view. And I would say these two elements, they will become increasingly central in digital banking going forward.
I totally agree, and I think that it's also something which I think the industry needs to think about as well, that what's the monetary value of the transactional security that banks are putting in place. Because in all of the payments, and that's probably quite important for a BaaS player to understand it, that because I think many of the BaaS cases out there have not been very successful, so I really look forward you to making it a success. I think what we need to understand is that what's the monetary value of the trust and security that banks are putting in place. Because the rails are operated by the banks. There is a lot of compliance checks, and banks are very good in one thing, and that's translating the regulation to operational things, and kind of understanding the compliance and really implementing it. I think that's where banks are really good at. And I think that there should be a price tag on that, because what that means for the customer is maintaining the transactional security and security in the banking industry. So what's the price tag of that?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. But then also, if we think transactional data in form of whatever we basically do and whatever service we are using, it can be payments, it can be hospital, it can be basically whatever transportation. I would say the security, it is kind of a must-have in all of those, as it's in banking, and also abilities to deliver that are there by different kinds of vendors. So I wouldn't really kind of take it as somehow exclusive by banks. I would say it is something where overall standard technical capabilities are simply improving, and therefore we're going to see operators like ePassi and these guys who simply build the service based on customer need and build it using modern technologies, which are not always used by banks also. So you know the regulation, you can build certain and many secure things, but it's not in any way owned by any industry nowadays. It's kind of for everyone and pretty much generic in that sense.
But as we continue in that journey, one of the things that I'm thinking, you both talk a lot about value, right? And banks traditionally have been custodians of value. But as we now start moving into this sort of dispersed model, looking at embedded finance, looking at different players that are traditionally not financial players, taking a role in customers' lives from a financial standpoint, trust and security becomes a critical element. I agree completely, which means that banks become more and more custodians of trust, not just value. So how are banks in this new model going to make sure that they continue to demonstrate this high level of trust and keep that relationship to the customer as it gets fragmented?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, because I think that for the customer, if I'm thinking about consumer customers now, for them, what has mattered is easiness and security, easiness and kind of easy of use. And can I make my payments easy? But now when the fraud levels are skyrocketing, I'm seeing more and more discussion on that, okay, why don't we have a little more kind of, I hate to say friction, but really like to really make sure that the customer knows that they're paying and kind of have that acknowledgement, because then the customer might come back to the bank and say, no, I never did the payment. They didn't even notice. Is it kind of too easy even? And I think that for the customer, what matters is that they know that they have paid, they have made a commitment, they have, of course, it's always a balance between the easiness of the use and then kind of ensuring that the customer is with us and customer understands what they're doing. And I think there is no crystal ball or no silver bullet solution for breaking that balance, but it's always a fine balance.
Yeah, and it's also quite simple thing in a way that if you think human relations, who you trust as a person, it is often a person who kind of understands you, who clearly kind of cares about you, who is present. And that goes for banking, that goes for any other service, that you need to show that you actually care about your customers and you are there for them when they need. And they also your services adapt to their different needs and kind of change while the world is changing. Then you show that you care and then you get trusted. That I think it's quite that easy and simple actually.
Yeah, and of course, like now when there are many players who are like PSD2 has opened the access to the accounts and the payment services. Of course, there is an increasing number of players who are working on that space, and I think that that's one of the things that we as an industry need to ensure then in the future that payments will remain secure. I'm a payments person, so sorry about that. and I think it's close to my heart that payments are remaining secure also in the future. So I think that then it's collaboration across the value chain, and it's also something where the players need to work together.
Yeah, it's very true, and I think we had a very, very good presentation by one of our former colleagues, Sarah Hager, earlier this day on what APIs can enable you to do and how much you actually need to trust them deliver that. And I think that was a really good one on showing how actually the capability is a service only when customers start to trust it and start to use it because they trust it. And I think that's something we all need to remember, that we can build tremendous things, but if customers don't trust you and your service, then they become easily meaningless. And I think that is for banks and also for us, sort of BaaS players or fintech bank hybrids, also to remember that we need to create the trust first, and then we can start spreading out the service.
So let's get down to nuts and bolts. Banks want to make money. Doesn't matter whether it is through the old business models or new business models. So are the new revenue streams from embedded finance and potential super apps here in the Nordics, are they sustainable, or are they just another bubble waiting to burst?
I believe they are, but I also sustainable. I believe they are, but I think time will also tell that whether they are sustainable or not. And that's something where we need to be humble also when we are providing those. But obviously, I believe they are.
I think for the time being, these super apps are still kind of like stored value solutions. So basically, customer is topping up the wallet and then using it. Yes, I'm buying my lunch with the likes of Epassi and maybe using some of my sports benefits, but that's about it. So I think it's quite far from the daily usage. And of course, like there needs to be a value for the customer. And payment habits die hard. I think always old habits die hard. So I think what our customers are appreciating is something like Apple Pay, something like Google Pay, which is very intuitive to use, very easy to use. And that's I think an example of a successful collaboration with the big techs that we're doing.
We agree the future of banking is going to be dominated by platforms. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Maybe.
Yes. Thank you. That was it.
Thank you very much. That was interesting.